produce a table of the three-letter country codes. It might look something like this, but to see at a glance which countries are winning the most medals, we could sort that table in a decreasing order. Notice how I've abbreviated the argument name. Dec is short for decreasing, and R can still know what's going on in most cases. And what we see here is that Norway has won the most medals, followed by the USA, followed by the USSR, Austria, Germany, Finland, and so forth. Of course, there's some complexities in interpretation when it comes to this, because here we have Russia, of course, which was very much part of the USSR, and so there's a little bit of historical stuff, but I guess that's more to do with interpretation than using R. Okay, so what's something else we could look at? So I thought, well, of the countries that have won a reasonable number of medals, is there any particular country that's won more gold medals, for example? And so I thought I'd have a look at that. It seemed like a reasonable question. Maybe there are some countries who've won a sufficient number of medals to indicate something meaningful, not just sort of randomness. So I thought, well, let's extract those countries. What we have here is first a table of the number of medals won by country, and then I'm saying, okay, well, which countries have a count greater than 50? So that returns a true-false value for each country. And so I'm saying extract only those elements of the vector table of medals country that have over 50. And so these square brackets allow us to select elements of this vector. And so when we highlight that and run it, we get just the countries that have won over 50 medals, and the names is now extracting the names of those countries that have won over 50 medals, and I'm assigning that to NOC 50 plus. Okay, so now we can say, okay, well, let's extract an element or a subset of the medals data frame for the rows where the country was one of the countries that has won over 50 medals. So this medals $NOC in the NOC 50 plus vector will return a true-false vector, a logical vector, where the value will be true where the country that's won the medal was in one of the countries that's won more than 50 medals. Just to highlight that, I can run just that section, and you can see this big long true-false vector. And if I was to run this line, I've assigned that subset of the medals data frame to a variable which I have labeled, not surprisingly, medals subset. And so we could have a quick look to check that. We could say structure medals subset equals, or 98.7, perhaps even we get just the dimension, and medals, oops, have I not yet assigned that to that? Have I not yet run this one? Anyway, there we go. So I'm wanting to run a table of the countries won the medals by the type of medal. So this medal variable is this gold, silver, bronze, and the table is the country that's won it. So I can get a table that cross-tabulates country by number of medals won, and the prop.table function, if I just highlight that and run that, returns the proportion of that table. So instead of looking at counts, it looks at proportions. By default, it will tell you the proportion of the overall table. So what percentage of medals were bronze and Austrian, for example, out of those in the table. But the margin function allows me to say what percentage of Austrian medals are bronze, or what percentage of Austrian medals are gold. So the 1 does it row-wise, and the value of 2 does it column-wise. So what this line of code will do is tell me the row-wise proportions. So, for example, Austria, 7% of their medals has been bronze. For example, France, on the other hand, has got 40% of medals they're bronze, and likewise, Germany, only 25% of their medals are bronze. Okay, so how can we see this at a glance? Who's perhaps won more gold medals? Well, we could order the data frame by the proportion of gold medals won. And so here I'm using the order function and extracting just the variable called medals, the variable called gold from the medals by medal by knock data frame. So I was hoping that would extract it, but I've just, and I'm telling to order it decreasing equals true. So we can see it's given the number of that row in decreasing order, so that the 10th row in decreasing order, so that the 10th row is the one with the greatest percentage or proportion of gold medals. And then I wanted to order the variables from gold, silver, bronze. So if I run that line of code, we now have this medals by medal by knock data frame, which is sorted descendingly based on percentage of gold medals won, and I thought it would be cleaner to round up those values just for presentation purposes to 2 decimal places. So now we can see at a glance that Russia has proportion terms won the greatest number of golds relative to other medals, 43%, whereas Finland has been less fortunate with only 27% of their medals being gold. I don't know whether that's interesting, and you'd probably have to explore some other statistical tests to say whether such differences are more than you'd expect based on, say, principles of random sampling or the null hypothesis of equal proportions across countries. But interesting to look at. Interesting perhaps if you're from one of those countries. Okay, so what else have we got in this data frame? I thought it might be interesting to ask the question of whether over time more countries are getting involved in the Winter Olympics, and more countries are being successful and winning at least one medal in an Olympic. And so I thought it would be interesting to have a look at that. So let's have a look at that question. First of all, I'm assigning a